There are moments in life when everything seems to fall apart at once, moments so heavy, so disorienting, that they feel like the edge of a cliff. For Sarah Matthews, a young nurse from Charleston, South Carolina, that moment came at exactly 5:42 a.m. on a foggy Tuesday morning when she realized she had boarded the wrong plane. Not just any wrong plane, a private jet. A jet accelerating down the runway before she even had the chance to scream. She was exhausted, trembling from the night shift she had just completed, running on no sleep and too much sadness. And as the jet lifted into the sky, her heart sank with it, because she thought she had just ruined the last thing she had left in her fragile life. If you believe kindness and second chances still exist in this world, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more life-changing stories to you. Sarah had been working double shifts for months, trying to pay for her mother's medical treatments. The bills piled up faster than her energy could keep up. She had fallen asleep at the airport gate after her shift had resting on her worn-out backpack, scrubs wrinkled, hair messy from long hours. She was supposed to fly to Denver to take her mother to another specialist appointment. Instead, in her drowsy haze, she followed a group of staff walking confidently toward a sleek white jet on the private terminal side of the airport. She had assumed they were boarding a shuttle plane. No one questioned her, maybe because her light blue scrubs made her seem official, maybe because the staff was distracted, or maybe because destiny had quietly reached out its hand toward her. Inside the jet, everything felt surreal. The plush beige seats, the quiet hum of the engines, the soft lighting that made everything glow with elegance. This was a life she had only ever seen through the window of a hospital room TV. She sat down, meaning to ask someone if she was in the wrong place, but before she could gather the courage, her exhaustion overtook her and she fell asleep. When she woke up, the world was already thousands of feet below her. Across from her sat a man who looked like he belonged in the kind of magazines people read in airport lounges. Mike Harrington, a billionaire entrepreneur known for rebuilding failing companies and rescuing jobs across the country. He sat calmly with a mug of coffee, observing her with a puzzled expression. But behind that puzzlement was something else, something deeply human. It was the tiny, invisible flicker of recognition one feels when they see someone who is clearly breaking inside. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Her hands shook as she tried to explain herself. She spoke in long, stumbling paragraphs about the exhaustion, the shift, the medical bills, the specialist appointment she would now miss. Her voice cracked halfway through, and for a long moment, the only sound in the cabin was the steady hum of the engines. Michael could have ordered the plane to turn around. He could have dismissed her as careless. He could have treated her like an inconvenience. But instead, he quietly closed his laptop, set his coffee aside, and listened to every word she said. Something in her story struck him, something that reminded him of the nights he spent in cold hospital waiting rooms when his younger brother was battling a rare illness decades ago. Nights where he, too, had felt powerless, broke, and terrified of losing someone he loved. He told her, in a steady voice filled with a calm she desperately needed, that everything would be all right. The plane was heading to Paris for a medical conference, one where the world's leading specialists, including Denver's top neurologists and oncologists, would be attending. Sarah looked at him in disbelief as he explained that he had meetings there regarding advanced treatment technology, and that bringing her mother's case to those specialists would be far more effective than any single appointment in Colorado. She didn't understand at first. Her mind was foggy with lack of sleep and fear. But then he spoke the words that changed everything. You didn't board the wrong plane, Sarah. You boarded the right miracle. For the first time in months, she felt her chest loosen, her breath steadying. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they weren't from fear or exhaustion. They were from relief. The jet continued through the clouds as Michael made calls, sending messages to doctors he knew personally, arranging consultations, and even securing a medical team in Paris to review her mother's records immediately upon arrival. Sarah sat silently, overwhelmed by the surreal kindness of a stranger who owed her nothing yet was giving her everything she needed. She watched him work. She watched how calm he was, how he never hesitated to help, how he carried a presence that made even chaos feel like it had direction. And in that quiet cabin, something inside her shifted. She felt seen not as a tired nurse drowning in medical bills, not as a mistake who boarded the wrong jet, but as someone worth helping. As they crossed the Atlantic, Sarah drifted in and out of sleep. In one moment, she watched the sunrise paint the clouds pink and gold, reminding her of the sunrises she used to watch with her mother before life got hard. In another, she found herself remembering all the nights she worked through tears, praying silently for just one break, just one miracle, just one person who would understand how heavy it all felt. And here she was flying toward Paris, toward hope, toward a future that for the first time didn't feel like a dead end. Michael didn't bombard her with questions or force conversation. Instead, he offered his quiet company, his steady presence, and the kind of respectful space that heals without trying. He handed her a warm blanket, asked if she wanted war, and reassured her that everything was being handled. She had spent her life taking care of others, carrying burdens no one saw. Now, someone was finally taking care of her. When the plane landed in Paris, the air felt different, soft, cool, full of possibility. As they exited the jet, Sarah stared at the city in awe. She had never traveled outside the United States. She had never even taken a vacation. Her world had always been a tight circle of hospital corridors, cramped apartments, and unpaid bills. But now she stood in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. Michael arranged everything. A team of specialists reviewed her mother's case within hours. They discovered treatment options that had never been mentioned before, options that could extend her mother's life and significantly improve her quality of living. Sarah felt lightheaded hearing it. She leaned against the wall, tears streaming down her face as the doctor spoke. She had spent countless nights thinking she would lose her mother, thinking she was running out of time. But now, time had opened its hands to her. Throughout the trip, Michael stayed nearby, offering gentle reassurance. He didn't act like a billionaire. He acted like a man who understood pain and didn't want anyone else to go through it alone. They walked through the quiet streets near the river Seine between medical appointments, sharing stories about their families, their childhoods, their fears. Sarah found herself laughing again, something she hadn't done in months. But the emotional turning point came late, one evening, when they stood on a bridge overlooking the shimmering water. Sarah told him she didn't know how to repay him, that she felt undeserving of his generosity. Michael placed his hands in his pockets, looking out over the water, and said that kindness was a currency that never runs dry, and that maybe the world would be a better place if people gave it more freely. Her heart softened in a way she couldn't fully understand. Something about his sincerity, the depth of his empathy, and the way he looked at her not with pity but with admiration made her feel seen in a way she had never experienced before. As her mother's treatment plan solidified and hope bloomed, Sarah knew this journey had changed her life forever, not just because of the medical help, but because someone believed in her worth at a moment when she barely believed in it herself. If this story has touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us reach more people who need stories of hope. Before we wrap up this story, here is a special request. Comment below one thing you are grateful for today. When Sarah returned to the United States with renewed hope and a clear path for her mother's treatment, she found that her world was no longer small, no longer limited by fear or exhaustion. Michael stayed in contact, checking on her mother's progress, offering support, and reminding her that she wasn't alone. And though she had boarded the wrong plane that morning, she stepped into the right destiny. A future filled with healing, compassion, and a connection she never saw coming. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with wings of light. Sometimes they arrive in the quiet hum of a private jet, in the steady voice of a stranger, or in the moment you realize you were never truly lost. You were simply being carried somewhere better. If you want the story rewritten in a more dramatic, romantic, sadder, or longer style, just tell me.